The Nintendo Switch is finally here. Though the specs are looking kind of spicy, there are other decisions that are pretty questionable that was made by Nintendo, and we're going to be talking about here today because Nintendo just revealed the Switch 2 with the pricing, the release date, as well as other things to consider when it comes to getting the Switch 2. Before we continue, what we're going to be mainly talking about is the pricing of things and what people are feeling a little bit negative about, because I feel we definitely need to address that. But let me just talk about the goodness, the beef and the potatoes of it all. I will definitely say this: the Nintendo Direct was okay. It was okay. It was a mixed bag, but it was okay. Though I will say the games that are coming out for Switch 2, oh my god, Nintendo fans are eating good. Now that the games are out the way, everyone is like, oh my god, these games are amazing, these games are so cool. Nintendo, just take my money. Just take it. Take my wallet. Just take it. Just take all of it. But then comes the pricing. And oh my god, the moment the pricing was revealed for like the Nintendo Switch, the games and the like, everyone just kind of shifted in their mood. It went from like, let's go, to like a, yeah, okay, people digging into their pockets a little bit. Like, how deep does your pocket run if it means getting the Nintendo Switch 2 and the games that you love? Because the Nintendo Switch 2 was announced for June 5th release date for $450. If you compare that to the price of the Switch 1 when it was released at $300, that's a 50% increase. This is to not say that people can't afford $450 or that's too crazy of a price point to pay for a gaming console. We have the Xbox and we have the PlayStation that are within that same ballpark. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is really no different. But I will say that Nintendo does target a certain demographic of gamers. So when you have casual gamers being asked of to spend $450 for a gaming console, that's a different tone compared to, say, hardcore gamers that may be on PlayStation or Xbox, that you would ask them, hey, this console will cost $450. This is to not say that Nintendo doesn't have hardcore gamers, but hardcore gamers are very niche in that community. So those fans or those kinds of gamers are most likely going to buy the Nintendo Switch 2. But for someone that doesn't really take gaming very seriously, they just love Mario and like to dabble on some Mario a little bit, I don't know if they're going to justify spending $450 just for that experience. Besides Nintendo telling you to min-max your money by June 5th so you can get the Switch 2, I think the main criticism on this whole Switch 2 reveal is the games. We need to talk about the pricing of the games, like Mario Kart World, for instance, that is priced at $80. $80 is pushing it. You're pushing the envelope here, Nintendo. Just recently, we were just getting a little bit comfortable with games being sold for $70. Now, all of a sudden, Nintendo is just pushing that envelope. They're just taking it to another level and saying, okay, we're going to sell this game for $80. And this is where feathers are getting kind of ruffled here a bit. Like, you remember the times where games used to be like $60? Now, imagine paying $80 just to get Blue Shelled in Mario Kart in 4K. Like, $80 is the near equivalent of a 4-month membership for the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. That's all. $80 is also a 12-month membership for the PlayStation Plus Essential Plan. Now, there's two arguments that I do want to address real quick, because there are a lot of people talking about how games used to be just as expensive back in the days. There's one group of people that will go to different conversations or discussions on the Switch 2, and they will bring up like brochures or pamphlets from different retailers that sell electronics, video games specifically, and these games would cost $70 or $80. Nintendo has touched on these prices before, so this is nothing new. So people bring this up as a way of saying, okay, well, games used to be $70. They used to be $80. So what's the big deal if you're spending $80 now? Well, gee whiz, I don't know. Back in the days, like in the 80s or the 90s, with minimum wage, I could afford a whole pie of pizza and some 2-liter soda and still afford a video game and enjoy enjoy the rest of my weekend with my new game. But today, with that minimum wage, you can't even afford eggs. And in fact, eggs are even more expensive than minimum wage at this point, which is fucking wild. So it's like we're over here defending Mario tax because, oh, games were just as expensive as today 20, 30 years ago, so what's the difference today? What's wrong with you? And then there are people over here that are saying things like about the inflation calculator. Like, you will have people that'll take $60 from 2016, 2017, use the inflation calculator for 2025, and then say, oh, look, $60 in 2017 is kind of $80 rounded up in 2025. I don't care how long it's been since games have been $70, $80, $90, or even $100. Back then, when you bought a game for $70 or $80, that game was yours. If you had the console, if you had the controller, and the game in hand, physically, you could pop it in, play it at any time. Nobody could tell you if you could play it, if you can't, if there's an internet outage, or whatever. There was no such thing as that. Nowadays, you're spending $60, $70, $80, $90, $100 for games that are incomplete, that gonna need DLCs in the future. There are so many patches involved, like as if the game is poorly optimized. Like, we're seriously sitting here justifying the price of these games. Like, it's not the fact that they may be justifying it. I don't understand the point of bringing these kinds of things into a conversation where games are getting increasingly expensive. Gaming itself as a hobby is becoming increasingly expensive. So I don't know what putting a KB Toys, magazine in my face saying, well, look, this Donkey Kong game from like the 80s used to be $90. Like, I don't know what you're trying to bring to the conversation. Like, this doesn't bring the conversation anywhere. Like, okay, like at least back then it didn't cost you an arm and a leg to buy a fucking video game. And speaking of games being incomplete in a sense, this brings us to my second point, or my second criticism of Nintendo. This is a bone I have to pick with them on, and it is the game keys. So we have a thing where there's a cartridge that has a game key. So say you want to buy a full game and you go to a brick and mortar store, retailer, and they sell you a game. It has a case and it will have a warning that says, hey, this is not a full game, this is a key. You take the key, or the cartridge, it's basically a cartridge, and you pop it into your Switch 2. This cartridge is a key. This key has maybe 1-2 gigs of data. This cartridge needs to download, with internet access, 2 gigs of data in order to enable your system to download the rest of the game, because the 2 gigs serves as like an activation key of some sort, which is so dumb. It is wasteful. It makes no sense. It gives people a false impression that they're owning a physical copy of their game. It makes absolutely no sense. My paranoia with game keys is that, God forbid, the Nintendo servers go offline for whatever reason. And say you have a game key for, I don't know, Cyberpunk 2077. Now, say the servers are offline and you want to play Cyberpunk 2077 to pass the time. You pop it in, and suddenly you get an error on your Switch 2 device that says, hey, listen, we can't connect to the internet, so you're not going to be able to play Cyberpunk 2077, even though you paid $70, $80, $90 for this game. Yeah, sure, it's downloaded in your system, but just because it's downloaded doesn't mean you could play it anytime you want. Look at the outage that took place with PSN not too long ago. That outage was crazy because you had people that downloaded games from the PlayStation Store. Then during the outage, they thought, all right, I'll just play some single player games. And because they downloaded it from the store, when they would boot up the game, they were met with an error that says PSN servers cannot verify the license of this game, which means that without the server, if you can't verify the key or the activation or the license of the game you downloaded into your system, you won't be able to play it. So you're even locked out of games that you downloaded. The only way you'll be able to play any game is if the full game itself is in the cartridge. And also, not to mention, environmentally speaking, it is a waste. It's a fucking piece of plastic case with a piece of plastic inside, and you just pop in, and it's not even a full game. And I can't help but point out the whole situation with Ubisoft from last year, where they mentioned that gamers are going to have to get used to or comfortable with not owning their games. And this is another example of that. Like, you have a whole bunch of cartridges that you may have in your little like Nintendo Switch pouch where you can put all your games in, when they're not really full games, they're just keys. So all those games you have in that little pouch of yours, can you really say you own those games? Like, this is the path we're heading to, and that's what worries me. Which brings us to our final take that I do want to touch on, which is the Welcome Tour that was revealed by Nintendo, which is basically a glorified digital manual for the Nintendo Switch 2. Let me reiterate that again. It is a glorified digital manual for the Switch 2. Let me be very clear. Welcome Tour is a tech demo. Nintendo just announced that it's going to be a paid game, so you have to pay for this. You probably remember the Nintendo Wii, where they had Wii Sports. Wii Sports, from what I recall, was bundled with your system, but it was for free. Wii Sports was a tech demo. It was a popular tech demo. People loved the Wii Sports. Then we had the PlayStation 4 or the PlayStation 5, where they had Astro's Playroom. Astro's Playroom came with the system for free. Again, amazing game. It showed demonstrations and capabilities of a DualSense controller. Hey, you want to see what a DualSense controller can actually do? You should play Astro's Playroom. If you wanted to see the capabilities of a Wii remote, you would play Wii Sports. These things were for free. I just feel it's not crazy. It's not a huge red flag, but I generally feel that Nintendo missed an opportunity to win a lot of hearts, because now they're taking that experience and putting it behind a paywall. Now, they did drop some information just recently on the pricing of Welcome Tour. It's not as much as you would think. It's actually going to be maybe around $5, or at least converted to roughly $5 when you convert the Japanese yen to the US dollar. But even then, if it was going to be so cheap, then why even charge people for it? At this point, it genuinely feels like a cash grab. Like, why do you need this $5 for a glorified digital manual for the Switch 2? Like, I don't get it. With all the points that I've introduced to you today, I feel as if Nintendo just took your wallet, converted it into a block, and they have Mario just punching your fucking wallet like the ding, the ding, the ding, the ding, the ding, the ding. Like, it's so crazy that Nintendo is just saying, yeah, the system's gonna cost this much and the game is gonna cost this much, but then you have to pay for the upgrade. Then you have to pay for the digital manual. It's just so much. No matter what you do on the Switch, it's like, yeah, you have to pay a fee for that. I don't understand it. A lot of the stuff that they're doing here is anti-consumer. I'm not gonna candy coat it. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Nintendo. Nintendo is a great company. They are amazing at what they do. They are the Disney of the gaming industry. Let's just leave it at that. But just because you love Nintendo doesn't mean you should accept getting ran over by an Elden Ring boss when you forget to roll. Plus, I did mention PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox. I'm not trying to create a console war, though I do want console wars to come back. I really feel console wars was so beneficial because it really put three of these companies in check when it comes to anti-consumerist practices that they would implement onto their systems or their services. Like, we really need to bring that back. But all in all, it's mainly about consumer respect. Because at the end of the day, when PlayStation is upcharging for their PlayStation 4 Pro and locking second-hand markets of used games behind a hardware that they call a disk drive. Or when you have Nintendo that is telling people, hey, these games are going to be $80 instead of $70. What are you going to do about it? The fact that you open your wallet and you go to Sony and Nintendo and you hand them your money, you are telling them you are doing a good job, keep doing what you're doing, here's my money. That's it. You are literally voting with your money, and I'm gonna let you walk away with that info. I'm not saying you shouldn't buy the Nintendo Switch. I'm not saying you should get the PlayStation or the Xbox, or why not just get a PC instead. I'm not gonna present that argument. You do what you do with your money, and I'll leave the judgment up to you. But until then, y'all, that's really all I have. Again, the Switch 2 is great. The games look fantastic. I really do. I might not get the Switch 2, but I'm not gonna lie, Mario Kart World looks amazing. You know, I would be a little bit jealous if I had a friend that was just playing it in front of me, or if I saw someone on the train playing the game. But until then, that's about it. Peace.